Hey everyone, so good to reconnect for the Taurus full moon. So as I'm filming this video, a storm is moving in, and also obviously I'm outside, so I apologize for any planes, dogs, birds. Yeah, and so when I kind of tap into the energy of the Taurus full moon, it kind of feels very contrary to any sort of those like stereotypes that quickly come up to mind when we think of Taurus, like that like peaceful, passive, docile, kind of like the word inertia comes to mind, like the cow just like grazing in a field, just like kind of pastoral, something kind of idyllic. This full moon coming through on Venus Day, so Friday, November 15th, let me check the exact time, 4:28 p.m. EST. So again, in the chart ruler is also going to be Venus, which is really important when we think about the ascendant also being in Taurus along with the moon and the planet Uranus, this kind of like cosmic disruption, rebel, renegade energy. And so the chart ruler with Taurus rising, and also it's on Venus Day, it's literally on Friday, is going to be Venus up in Capricorn. And this feels, there's something a little bit ruthless, I won't lie, about this full moon. Perhaps relationally, perhaps a lot of kind of like striking realizations and like kind of revelations, downloads coming through, and it feels very like there could be the possibility or the inclination here to just kind of say fuck it and run for the hills and like just be done with the situation, and then have that urge to literally, with the moon conjunct the planet Uranus in the first house, opposing the sun in Scorpio in the 7th house, this urge to literally stand apart from someone or something or some system. Or even another theme that I saw with planet Mars, this is our first full moon since Mars has ingressed out of the sign of Cancer, where it kind of struggles, into Leo, where it's a lot stronger. And so kind of seeing those stronger like martial leadership fighting qualities of Mars kind of being activated around this time of this Taurus full moon, with the planet Mars being in the 4th house, where we see kind of our roots, our ancestry, our long kind of the word that comes to mind is like concretized, like the way, like the sedimented like family patterns. This is where we find like generational ancestral healing in the 4th house. And so the urge to kind of like have some sort of realization, and this urge, this Uranian urge for freedom, the planet Uranus kind of identifies itself through some sort of rebellion. So just kind of that could be something to watch for at this time. Not good or bad, just very powerful for sure. Another planetary aspect that is going exact or perfecting at the time of this Taurus full moon is going to be a Mercury opposition to the planet Jupiter. And so they're going to be 180 degrees apart. And interestingly, Mercury is in the sign of its detriment, so it's in Sagittarius. It kind of struggles here because when we see Mercury in Sag, we see these kind of like less of an interest with specifics and truth per se, and more of an interest in like storytelling, this like grandiose kind of like whipping up emotions. And it can be very effective for sure. And then also Jupiter is also in its detriment in Gemini. And so an interesting aspect to this is we have something called a mutual reception, which is where we have one planet in the sign that another planet rules. So in this case, Mercury is in Sagittarius, which Jupiter rules. And then we have a second planet, in this case Mercury, or I already said Mercury. So we have Jupiter in Gemini, which is the sign that Mercury rules. Mercury rules Gemini and Virgo, and Jupiter rules Sagittarius and Pisces. So we have mutual reception. So it's like these planets are in like the house of the other planet. So while the opposition is typically a transit that kind of invokes some tension or some need to kind of engage with it, a lot of times it shows up in relationships as like literally the other who's opposing us. But with mutual reception, there is the possibility here for unconventional realizations, creativity, innovation, kind of having some realization that's maybe a little bit different thinking than the way we normally think, if that makes sense, and then wanting to immediately translate that with Uranus to take action, to change something, to break free of something if something is feeling restrictive or kind of stale, for sure. choices to fight or to surrender. And another really important thing, the last thing that I'll mention before I start turning to the tarot, is we have the planet Saturn going direct. So ending its retrograde cycle and going direct on the same day of the Taurus full moon on the 15th of November. And this is a pretty big thing when an outer planet either stations direct or retrograde. It happens less frequently than like the inner planets, like we have Mercury and Venus and Mars retrogrades pretty often. But with a Saturn turning direct on the day of a full moon, there is a quality of sobering up, of kind of waking up, of kind of having some sort of rude awakening or like come to Jesus moment, of like something getting more clear, something getting more real. When Saturn is retrograde, we kind of have this quality or experience of reality where there's kind of a quality of unreality, or things just feel a little surreal. They feel a little like hard to make things happen in a concrete way, which especially the chart ruler Venus in Capricorn is very interested in making things happen in a concrete way, in a way that also takes into perspective like aesthetics and beauty, but it can be more of like an austere energy, of like that kind of ice queen energy of like more interested in like removing things than with like a Venus in Leo. We might see like more like maximalism in an aesthetic, like think about like the lion with all of its hair, but with Venus in Capricorn it's more of like a wintry kind of strong in terms of like boundary setting, in terms of cutting things out. And so with the moon conjunct Uranus, we could already see we're kind of being supported honestly to set really healthy boundaries, which is always so challenging for all of us people-pleasing people. So we're kind of being supported, but there's a real Saturn is inviting us to get really real about something sobering up. And the last thing I'll say about, I have not concerns, I don't want to kind of fearmonger, but I will say the day that Mars ingressed into Taurus, like I said, Mars will now be in Leo at the time of this new moon, but Taurus was the last fixed sign, and when Mars is in fixed signs, there's an extra kind of like doubling down, conflict, like sometimes butting heads energy. And okay, so the day Mars ingressed into Taurus, which was in a few years ago, was the day of the insurrection. And so I just want to say that in terms of now Mars being in Leo, the next fixed sign since Taurus, forming that kind of square aspect, we might kind of look for some sort of progression in that story or that kind of ongoing theme within the US specifically, something, but now that it's kind of the reverse in a way, where it's the party that once broached, if that makes sense, but is now kind of in this like leonine leadership role where it has the power. So maybe there's like going to be some, we might look to around this November 15th time as kind of like a particular peak or like heightened point in the energy of like reactionary mobilizing efforts, potentially. Don't want to predict anything, but let's see. Yeah, something about like, what are we willing to fight for? Like, what baggage do we need to put down? What swords do we need to kind of lay down that we've been kind of carrying metaphorically or literally for some time? So first I'm going to pull a goddess as our guide for this Taurus full moon. This is Colette Barron Reed's Goddess Power deck, if you're interested. Okay, Spirit, what face of the goddess is supporting us through this Taurus full moon? You can hear Finn breathing very loudly. This could be maybe that's some sort of information in terms of like an exhausting or like pressure cooker scenario where we're kind of feeling the heat in some way and feeling kind of labored in terms of having to make a change. That kind of, with Uranus, a lot of times the change feels inevitable. Like it's not really, it could be a small thing, like I want to paint this room a different color, but often with Uranus, especially conjunct the moon in the first house of self, it's a lot bigger of like a change that feels essential because it reflects some sort of as yet unknown but felt new piece of self that's coming in, and the need to actualize that by making different decisions or being surrounded by different people or new environments or new ways of being. Okay, we have Maya. She shows up in a lot of religious traditions, I know, like the Greco-Roman, the Hindu, I think Scandinavian as well, spiritual traditions. Maya, illusion. Okay. Yeah, like I said, with Saturn going direct in Pisces and this kind of inventory taking, waking up, kind of like Four of Swords in reversed energy of like rising up, being like, oh, maybe I was kind of like scattered or out of it, but there's like a distillation happening and some sort of like illusion. But also with Mercury, like I said, opposing Jupiter, both in the signs of their detriment, where they kind of struggle traditionally a little bit, not that it's a bad position to be in, but that it's more unconventional. Kind of watching for any sort of like just being cautious around like facts. Like if we hear any sort of information that's either too good to be true or just sounds like it's really catastrophic, kind of waiting for more clarity. It's Taurus full moon. Get one more. Okay, Shakti transformation in reverse. Yeah, this makes me think about Leo, or the planet Mars in Leo in the 4th house of this chart, and also just the Uranian signature of this full moon and the need to change, but also feeling that opposition, feeling that like opponent energy, that like adversary energy. It's a mosquito. Yeah, that kind of feeling like little nagging, like little annoying things that are on paper small, but they become like an eyesore. They become the elephant in the room and they become impossible to ignore. It's kind of like the mosquito that was just here, where it's like, oh, it's so small, it's so tiny, but it becomes just this like grating, itchy, like uncomfortable sock feeling where you're like, I need to. It's like a weird metaphor to use for this powerful goddess energy, but like the need to break through something and having support to kind of break through this like quagmire is the word that's coming. That's a weird word, but like this like mushy, like unclear, and there's like a need to know and not necessarily have all the answers, no, but know as in know ourselves deeper so that we can like more firmly grasp reality, if that makes sense. But feel free to start a conversation in the comments section and kind of share. It doesn't have to be through the lens of astrology, but just anything that's happening. It really helps all of us learn in community when we have examples around like around each other's lives. Okay. Spirit, what is being revealed around the time of this Taurus full moon in the collective energies? This Taurus full moon. So what is being revealed? Page of Pentacles. Let me pull one more. Can I please clarify the star? Why is the star here? The Hermit. Let me clarify the Page of Wands. Yeah. It's like there's a waking up, literally. The Hanged Man or the Tethered One. We'd love to see this energy in every video, but in the reverse position. So like a literally being in a new perspective, shaking something up, but also like a literally like an untying and unbinding and like a force of liberation in some capacity. The King of Swords in reverse. Why is the King of... Okay. What I said, and this is important because there's the Sabian symbol for 13 degrees of Pisces, which is the degree that Saturn is going direct at. So like a big kind of collective energy. And I talked about like laying down a sword. We have the Five of Swords in reversed. Like what's worth fighting over? And kind of there's like this wave of momentum that's coming in this like breakthrough. One second, let me clarify the Page of Pentacles. Okay. Yeah. Okay. So being able to kind of shake something up in a way that's honoring some true impulse, and not just, because when the Uranian energy is not like directed, because it's kind of that energy of like pure lightning, and when it's not directed through a conduit, the electricity can be really destructive and can potentially sever relationships that maybe we wanted to stay around because we wanted to, the difference between winning, like being right, and like having like kindness and love. So if we're not careful to, if the true North Star isn't clear about why we're making this choice, this exciting new opportunity, this new direction that we want to go in, and again, with all of these full moons, like they happen once a month, so it's not like this might be like a new thing that drops in. It could be, because with Uranus sometimes it's like totally unexpected left field thing, or like a dream, and you're like, oh my god, I want to start raising goats, or I want to quit my corporate job and like become a nomadic person. Like that could totally happen. Or it could be like more of the next chapter, the next ongoing iteration, ideation of this thing that's maybe been there your whole life potentially. And I love how the Hermit and the Star are clarifying each other in this, like, both of these people are looking like one step ahead of them. Like literally the Hermit is only being guided by the light of this lantern in this kind of like snowy place. But then the Star, which is like Aquarius energy, Pluto is also, at the time of this lunation, Pluto is going to ingress into the sign. So the 15th is the lunation. The 19th of November, Pluto is ingressing into the sign of Aquarius for the next 20 years until 2044. And it's this kind of like introduction of this new era is kind of being ushered in a new level at the time of this Taurus full moon, which is squaring the sign of Aquarius, another fixed sign. And so let's see if we can clarify this message. There's a lot of like wind in the sails for sure to kind of like whatever this thing is, and maybe it's not so simple as like a goal that can be like, okay, checked off and achieved, but the direction, the kind of Uranian, and it usually has something to do with freedom, it usually has something to do with expansion, with change in some capacity. So whatever the desired change that necessitates the Eight of Cups walking away from, you know, those kind of pain, trauma from childhood, from family, from generations and generations of people who weren't supported or didn't have the resources in order to show up the way they wanted to, maybe. There's kind of like a grief, but also an excitement in terms of like a closure is happening here. And when we kind of put something down, and it's like a dual thing, putting something down and then also picking something up. Like there's a need to let something go before you pick something up. There's a need to view something from a new perspective before making a decision about like the next move, if that makes sense. Okay, let me check in on what are the potential challenges working with this Taurus full moon in the collective. What can we see? The King of Cups. Okay, with all of this like electrical kind of nervous system dysregulating, powerful Taurus moon, which really enjoys stability, really enjoys the kind of like literally tending to the garden, this like peace, but conjunct the planet Uranus, which is a different flavor, which is a like potentially like emotional roller coaster, but the need to kind of like stay centered in the why. In like, this could be just like a good thing to journal on at the time of this full moon, like why, like what if you have a vision of like the future, can you tune into like bringing that into your current experience of reality in some capacity, or being able to kind of be this King of Cups figure who's like in this, like the throne is in the ocean, like it's a turbulent, there's a ship behind him, there's fish jumping, it's like there's a lot of distraction, there's a lot of mutability in some capacity in terms of change, but being kind of centered in some way, willing to wake up to the reality of something, willing to kind of take in all of this information, have hard conversations with others that might be uncomfortable. People might be saying like deep-rooted truths that they haven't spoken ever. And so being able to like, okay, this is like, hold center while I'm hearing all of these perspectives and not be rocked by them, be this kind of like emotionally advanced is the word that's coming to mind, competent, sovereign person who is able to navigate all of this change with the knowledge that it's ultimately for the better. It's a long-held dream. A lot of times the star is like the dream, the inspiration, the realization card with the hermit, this kind of introspective energy. And so while a lot of this energy, when I look at the chart, feels very like it would show up like in an external way, a very externalized way in terms of conflict, that doesn't have to be so. It could be like facing inner conflict and being very introspective and like having all of these different parts come up in terms of the part that wants change, the part that's afraid to change, afraid to let go, the part that wants to let something go but is afraid of what will happen if they were to just let it be over. So yeah, as we navigate this Taurus full moon, the last thing I'll say is we are very capable of handling chaos when we remember why we're doing what we're doing, what the ultimate goal is, tuning back into that Venus and Capricorn energy. Like, what's the goal here? Is the goal peace, freedom, serenity, freedom? I guess that's the ultimate Uranian word. Is it freedom? So stay focused on your North Star, and honestly, the rest will shake out as it will. So sending you a lot of love and support, and have a beautiful Taurus full moon.